Hey there everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Elizabeth with Ellie's Handcrafted Jewelry, and today I'm going to be sharing how to create this woven inverted teardrop pendant. Now this is part 1 of 2, and we'll focus on how to create the stacked woven frame. Part 2 will focus on how to create the woven bail and back, and I'll put a link to the next video in the description box below. So let's get started. Now for tools, you're going to need a ruler, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and flush cutters. And for materials, you're going to need 5 segments of 20 gauge wire and a teardrop cabochon of your choice. For weaving wire, you're probably going to need about 3 to 5 feet of 26 or 28 gauge weaving wire. Now, to figure out the amount of 20 gauge wire you need for the base wires, simply measure the perimeter of the stone and add about 8 to 10 inches to that measurement. If you're relatively new to wire weaving, probably add 10 inches to give you some room for error. And for me, I needed 11 inches of wire, so I'm going to go ahead and measure where the center of that is, which is at 5.5 inches. And then once I figured out that measurement, either by marking with a Sharpie or just holding it with your thumb, I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers and I'm going to start bending it in half just slightly, just to give me a little bit of a point. Now once I've gotten a little bit of a point, I'm going to add a little bit of definition to that point by taking my chain nose pliers and bending them a little bit more to get a little bit more of an angle. I'm going to grab the next wire and I'm going to do the same thing to the next one. Now once they have all been bent, they should be stacking like so. So the outer one should be a little bit bent out further, and then the ones inside should have a little bit tighter angle. And for my weaving wire, I'm going to be using 28 gauge wire. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my outer wire, and I'm going to wrap around the right side of that with my weaving wire a total of 3 times. Now I wrap my weaving wire, I'm going to go ahead and scooch it down to the end there and start my weave. So I'm going to add the next base wire, and I'm going to begin wrapping around both base wires 2 times. Now I'm going to bring my weaving wire in between the 2 base wires. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and add the next base wire, continue stacking. And then I'm going to wrap my weaving wire around the next 2 base wires 2 times, just like before. Now after bringing my weaving wire in between the last 2 base wires and adding my next base wire, I'm wrapping around the bottom 2 base wires like before. And then to prepare for the next base wire, I will bring the wire in between the 2 bottom base wires. Now I'm adding my last base wire and wrapping my weaving wire around the last 2. And this is going to be some of the more difficult parts. This beginning part is very difficult. Especially if you've never done this before, but I promise you, once you get them all woven together, it does get easier. And this is kind of what it should look like so far. And now I'm bringing my weaving wire back behind and in between the second and third base wires. So the first base wire being the one on top, so coming in between the second and third base wires, and then I'm going to wrap them around the third and fourth base wires 2 times as well. Now that I wrapped those 2 base wires together, I'm going to go ahead and wrap the second and third base wires together. And you should be bringing the wire in between the first and second base wires and wrapping it around the second and third base wires. Once you've wrapped those together, now we're going to go ahead and wrap the first and second base wires together 2 times, just like the previous base wires. Now we got our first pyramid kind of woven in already. So now we're going to go ahead and bring the wire in between the first and second base wire, and then begin wrapping it around the second and third base wires, starting another pyramid. Now bringing the wire in between the second and third base wires and wrapping around the third and fourth base wires 2 times, just like the previous. Now bringing our weaving wire in between the third and fourth base wires, we're now going to wrap the base wires that are the bottom 2 base wires. And then just going to repeat the previous steps, wrapping the base wires together like before, creating another pyramid. And we're going to go ahead and continue doing this until we reached about the top of the stone. And at this point, it might be easier to use a ring clamp or a spring clamp, like in this case, to save your hands from fatigue. Now once you've woven a little bit, we're going to go ahead and check it against the stone. And you'll probably want about 2 pyramids above the stone. And once you've done that, you're done with that side. And then once you've completed that side, we're going to go ahead and finish it off on this side, taking our weaving wire and wrapping it around the bottom base wire 3 times. Now at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and pull and twist the wire until it comes off, and that'll leave a clean cut. From there, I'm just straightening up the next base wires to begin weaving them. And I'm going to take my weaving wire and stick it through the base wires like so. And then I'm going to wrap that weaving wire around the bottom base wire 3 times to get started. Once I've wrapped that 3 times, I'm now going to wrap the weaving wire around the bottom 2 base wires 2 times. And then I'm going to bring it in between the bottom 2 base wires. And then I'm going to wrap around the second and third base wires. Bringing it in between the second and third base wires to begin wrapping it around the third and fourth base wires. Now I'm bringing it in between the third and fourth base wires, and I'm going to wrap around the fourth and fifth base wires. Now once I've completed my weaving, I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that all the way up, matching the other side and creating those pyramids like before. Once I've completed my weave on both sides, I'm going to go ahead and trim off the excess wires at the beginning of the weave using my flush cutters. take my chain nose pliers and tuck in those burrs just so there's nothing snagging. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay my stone on the desk, and I'm going to go ahead and gently wrap the weave around the top of it to kind of start getting the shape. And it might be difficult to do this at first. You can also use your fingers to kind of manipulate the weave until you get it to where you like it. And just keep comparing it with the stone as you work it to get it to where it sits nicely over the stone, but also making sure that it comes in contact with all the sides so that the stone doesn't pop out. Now just keep playing with the frame until the top meets up, kind of like so. You're going to want to bend out the top of the frame a little bit. This is where the bail is going to be created. We especially want to make sure that the weaving wire there at the top comes together and weaves those two together. But mostly just making sure that stone fits properly in there. Continue working with that until it fits. And then once you're done with that, you can work with the top and make sure you can weave those top middle two base wires together. And I'm just bending out these top base wires a little bit just to where they're kind of making a V shape. And now I'm going to go ahead and take my weaving wire. Once I've checked with the stone, now I'm going to grab my weaving wire and I'm going to go ahead and wrap around the two middle base wires there at the very center. Thanks for watching this tutorial. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button down below and subscribe to stay up to date on the latest videos. And if you'd like to see some of my written tutorials, you can click the link to my website in the description box down below. And if you're loving this project so far, you can click the link to watch part 2 and learn how to create the bail and the back of this pendant. Hope that you all have a great one.